Hello everybody on the beautiful website of YouTube, this is your Uncle Gurga coming here, and today we're taking a look at another Akira Kurosawa classic, and this is his true masterpiece according to most people, Seven Samurai, or as it's called in Japan, Shichinin no Samurai. In Seven Samurai we follow a pack of farmers living in a poor village who is always being raided by bandits who aids out to get some help from a pack of samurai that will help them defend their village from the next raid of the bandits. Now going into this movie I was actually kind of at the edge and a little bit afraid because of the running time. This is a black and white movie in Japanese that's 3.5 hours long. And yes, I know it's highly regarded by both audience and critics, but I still had my doubts on how much I would actually enjoy this film. I definitely understood that there is a lot of influence from this movie that definitely have spawned modern cinema today and definitely the action genre. However, I was pleasantly blown away. My expectations were shot up from the roof because I thought this movie was fantastic from start to finish. This movie deserves all the praise it's getting. Wow, just wow. Let's start. The cinematography and the visual style of the movie is what I can see classic Kurosawa. It is beautiful. It's as great as a black and white movie really can get. Nothing wrong there at all. The movie starts out with the farmers. You know, we see these poor farmers who's very much getting into groups. They're kind of crying together and they just need to get some help from anybody. And they decide that they are going to get out there and pay some samurais that will help them defend their village. And you really get their motivation and you feel sympathetic to them because they have nothing else than their rights, you know, that they are farming, whatever you can say. And of course these bandits are always raiding their village and destroying it for them, and if they don't get help, well, they are going to starve to death. And so you really get a clear motivation for the farmers, and the characters are very likable and maybe not that more than two-dimensional. However, that is where the samurai comes in. The samurai characters in this movie was amazing. Every single one of them had their own arc and it felt so natural. It's very much, I would say, one of the most perfect set of characters in any movie. The whole group gets their own motivations and their personalities very cleared out from the get-go. You really get their motivations and you really get who they are and what they stand for. And they're all very different. It's very much a group of different individuals. You have the leader type, you have the more silent and who's very much in his own zone, and you have the younger, more ambitious type, and you have a little bit of a comic relief. The character that is played by the character of Kiki Shiyu, as it's called, I believe, who is played by Mifune, who is kind of like the all-time great actor of the Kurosawa movies, what I've heard, and he was absolutely fantastic in this movie, his performance, because it's very much what I would call early comic relief. I can't really remember watching a movie as this old having a comic relief character, but he very much kind of works like the comic relief of this movie. But it's not pandering and it's not in your face comic relief. It's very much more a natural comedy, and you really find the guy kind of hilarious because of his personality. It's very much, he's not like an asshole per se, and he also has a very beautiful backstory, an arc to him that gets told in a very beautiful way. Instead of just having him telling it straight out, you know, in a dialogue scene, it's very much happening like in the moment of something. He kind of gets down on his knees and starts crying over something that's happening and telling how similar it is to his own story. And that's just very great of getting the emotional impact of a character's backstory instead of having the exposition there, because some people say that this movie is a little exposition heavy, or some people, not that many, and I can't disagree more with them. I think this movie handles their characters perfectly, simply letting the characters grow more and more into the films, and we get to know them more and more as the story itself progresses and moves on, which I think is amazing, because the story itself, it is quite simple. It's an interesting premise that definitely works, but it is not like that's super original. Maybe a little for its time, but we've seen it done 100 times. But what makes this movie work so well is basically the characters and performance of the samurai. and the chemistry between them and all of their personal arcs and stories are just so beautifully displayed in such a nuanced way instead of an in-your-face exposition way that we very often get. And that was something that surprised me very much. The characters definitely got on my heartstrings and I cared for every single one of them for different reasons. That's how you make a great set of characters. The soundtrack of this movie is also really good. It's a soundtrack that is a little bit more quiet and subtle than maybe the one we had in Rashomon. I did complain that the Rashomon soundtrack was a little bit overly orchestral and bombastic at times, and when that happens in this movie, it serves its purpose perfectly, like when the action starts to kick in and then maybe the soundtrack gets a little bit, bigger and louder, and it fits the tone. And let's talk the action. The action scenes in this movie, you clearly see how it influenced the action movies that came all the decades after. It is beautifully choreographed and shot. I will not say that it's the best action I've ever seen, because I don't think it is. I think we have plenty of action movies that have surpassed Seven Samurai in that regard. However, it is still very impressive for its time, and you definitely see how it influenced a whole generation of filmmakers to come later on. The direction by Akira Kurosawa is simply put masterful when it comes to building his characters and their arcs in a very great and nuanced way, and also shooting some really beautiful action sequences. And simply put, the movie just succeeds in emotion. Like when we have our moments of more, comedy, where it's supposed to be a really funny scene, a real funny moment, and they work perfectly. We have some moments where it's supposed to be a little bit more somber and dramatic and a little bit sad, and it works perfect in those moments. And we have the action sequence that's supposed to be, a little bit thrilling and exciting, and it works perfectly there also. And that's, I think, is what makes this movie also so perfect, because it never feels like it just sways back and forth and it doesn't make sense and it doesn't fit. The tone is always working as it should, and at the same time Kurosawa can convey these different emotions throughout this movie. We have so much emotional depth in this movie, from straight comedy to thrilling action to some serious dramatic scenes, and I love it for it. And also the battle, I think, is very entertaining, because it's not just a bloated big action apocalyptic battle that we're used to. It's very much more a strategic battle that is kind of split up into different parts. So like the last hour, there's like 3 different battles happening. Like we have the first battle, and then there's a little pause, and then the second wave comes and such. And I really liked having a more strategic battle instead of just having a big bloated battle that we're kind of used to. So simply put, this movie just floored me, because it never feels like it's slow. The pacing of this movie was fantastic. It's a 3.5-hour movie that just gripped me by my hand into the beginning of the movie and just said, hold on, we're going to show you a beautiful movie with some of the most amazing characters. And then it just went on from there. It never slowed down. In my opinion, it doesn't feel slow at all, because every single frame, every single scene, and every single piece of dialogue has a serious meaning for the film's story, and definitely for the film's character, because this is very much a character movie more than a story movie, and it worked perfectly for it. The only real issue I guess I had with this movie is like the opening credits, because it's just like black background and then there's like Japanese text coming up, naming the actors and directors, and it goes on for like 5 or 6 minutes. I thought that was kind of dull and boring, but otherwise, you know what? This movie didn't really have I didn't have any other gripes with this movie. This movie was amazing. It is fantastic all the way through. Yeah. My final words on Seven Samurai by Akira Kurosawa goes like this. As impressive as it is immersive, this old classic still holds up incredibly well, boosted by a truly great set of characters and the mastermind direction by Kurosawa, who makes this a masterpiece achievement. I'm gonna give Seven Samurai the highest score I possibly can. It is a 10 out of 10 for me. I just was so thoroughly enjoying this movie, but at the same time also respecting it so much for what it has done for modern cinema, and I just bought into every single character and personality in this movie, and it just worked out perfect for me. I don't have any real complaint about this movie. yeah, it's just stunned me how much I actually enjoy this movie, and that it wasn't a drag. You know, it's 3.5 hour movie that's in Japanese and black and white. You know, you feel a little iffy when you put it in, but I was just grasped. I was just so amazed by the characters that was on display, and I bought into the request 100%, and I love this movie. I really do. Wow, this movie surprised me a lot. If you enjoy my content, don't forget to leave a nice comment and a thumbs up and subscribe for more. And if you don't, well, I guess don't subscribe and leave a thumbs down and write a hate comment. I have been your Uncle Gurga. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.